Success, guys, a very, very lonely road, man. And along that road, you're not gonna see too many friends. You're gonna see your shadow most often.
If you do what
thing is, for many people,
it is that you're called upon to do, which
which
is to lift your eyes up above
failed.
the mundane, daily, selfish,
You don't burn out
impulsive
mentally.
issues that might beset you and attempt
Because you
to enter
always
into
burn
a
out
contractual
physically.
relationship with
You gotta trust
that
in the heart
which
of
you might
hearts.
hold in the highest
Inside
regard,
what you're
whatever
doing,
that
what you
might
believe
be.
in, is a
To
worthy
aim
cause, a
high,
winnable fight.
make that important above
If you
all
allow
else
it to
in your
sit,
life.
it will grow
that
roots and
fortifies
start
you
breaking
against
you
the
down,
vicissitudes of
destroying the
existence like
potential
nothing
person
else
you can
can.
be.
And I
The
truly
champions,
believe
guys.
that that's
It's
the
not
most
the
practical
potential,
advice
it's not their genetics.
that you could
It's
possibly
their perseverance
receive.
to always show up.
The way
What I'm
that
saying
you
is a
fortify
character
your faith in life
of
is
who
to
you are.
assume the best,
It's not the title
something like
that
and
makes
then
you.
to act
It's not the
courageously
success
in
that makes you.
relationship to that.
The character
And
defines the
that's-
success,
that's
defines the fame,
tantamount to
and it starts right
expressing your
there.
faith in
It's
the
how you
highest
look at
possible
something. If
good.
your name's
Tantamount to
attached to
expressing
it,
your faith
then
in
you
God.
do it right.
It's not a
The
matter
best of your
stating,
ability every single
I
time.
believe in the existence of a transcendent deity.
Championships aren't won in the
cares,
theater of the arena.
Who cares what you believe? I mean,
They're
you
won
might
in
and all that,
thousands of hours
but
in the
that's not
training room,
issue.
in the
That's not
labs,
the
in the
issue.
5 a.m.
The
runs,
issue,
when
it
it's
seems
raining,
to
when
me,
everyone
is
else is
how you
sleeping.
act.
That's when it's won.
The issue is not what you believe
The
as
heart
if
of a
it's a set of
champion
facts, but how you
is a
conduct
light
yourself
switch
in the
that's
world.
always on. It doesn't go on and off when someone's watching.
The
It's
purpose of
constant.
thinking is to let your thoughts die instead of you.
Fear is self-imposed.
Brilliant.
Meaning it doesn't exist.
No,
You create it, you can destroy it too. I love fear. The reason why, behind every
Conjure
fear
up a
is a person you want to be.
Conjure up a variety of potential
You
representations.
face your fears, you become the person you want to be.
Lay
You run
out
from your
how those
fears, you're
future
not living.
representations
You're
of yourself
alive,
are
but you're not
likely
giving it
to
freedom.
prevail or fail. You can cull
If you face
the
your fears,
potential
guys,
views
and
of the
fear
future
is
that
destroyed.
fail,
It comes back
and then
as
you can
confidence.
embody the
What
ones
else am I?
that will
What else am I
succeed.
capable of? What else am I
You
holding
do
my
that
back from that I'm capable of more? What am I running from? I don't need to. What else can I overcome?
State and determining for
When you embark
yourself
this journey, you must know
because of your
that it's going to go
self,
down before it comes
which
up.
elements
When it comes up, it's going to go so much higher than you've
given
ever
up so
been.
that you can move forward into
It
that
begins
future.
right now with no one looking.
And the goal, what is it that
Between
you're
a winner
aiming
and a
at with
loser,
that word
this is
of
the
that
winner gets back
sacrifice?
up, it
That's the
does it again.
ultimate question.
It does it again until it goes
What
his
is it
way.
that you're trying to do? You're trying to improve the future. You
Sacrifice
believe
and
that the
make
future can
better
be
ends.
improved. You believe that it can be improved as a consequence of our sacrifice.
Something in the near future,
And so,
relative
once
future,
again,
that
what
gives
are the
value to
limitations?
today.
What are the limits to that? What are the necessary limits to
We
that?
all
I
fall
would say
down
we
in
don't
life.
know.
The question is, who gets back up? You go after
Conjured
it.
up
You
this
give it all you
remarkable
have.
idea.
If you lose,
The
at least you
future
try,
exists.
man.
We can see
I
it even
failed.
though it's
It's
only
10 times more of a man
adjust
than someone
our
said,
behavior
what
in
if?
the present
Because what if
in
never
order
went to the
maximize
arena.
the probability of success in the future.
You've hit the wall
How
someplace,
best
you've looked in the
to
mirror
do
too many
that?
times and haven't smiled. You want to
Idea is
change the
something
situation, move from where you are.
Don't hesitate.
And you do it
to
right.
offer
The best of your
ultimate
ability every
sacrifice.
single time. That's the same
If you
person
want
who has his
future
hand
to
raised
turn out
on the podium one
ultimately
day.
well. What is it that you could
Because it's hard. It's an uphill battle.
contract for?
It's a path
let's
less
say,
taken.
if you were willing to give up everything about you that's weak and unworthy?
That's what creates the champion.
The proper sacrificial attitude produces a psychological state and then a social state that's a manifestation of that attitude that decreases the probability that the world will careen into hell and increases the probability that people will live high quality, meaningful, private lives in a society that's balanced and capable of supporting that. And none of that seems to me to be questionable, really. I also don't think it's anything that people don't actually know. You know, people have told me many times that when they listen to me talk, they're hearing things that they already knew but didn't know how to say. It's something like that. And this is one of those things that I think is exactly like that. I mean, I think it's at the very core of our moral knowledge, which is our behavioral knowledge and our perceptual knowledge. I mean, let's get this straight. Moral knowledge is no trivial matter. It's knowledge about how it is that you orient yourself in the world. There's no more profoundly necessary form of knowledge. Well, it's predicated on something that's exactly like this. We know that we have to make sacrifices. We know that we have to aim at what's good. So then why isn't that we don't aim at what's best and make the sacrifices that are necessary in order to bring that into play? I think it seems to me that in some sense that's self-evident. The question is why we don't do it, but there's answers to that too. Life is hard and it hurts people. It's rife with limitation and some of it's arbitrary. And some of it's unjust, and some of it's worse, some of it's malevolent, which is even worse. It's not surprising that that combination of vicissitude can turn people against being. But I think even when that happens, and even when people have the kind of history that if they revealed to you, you would say, well, it's no wonder you turned out that way. The people who turn out that way still know that it's wrong. They still know that however deep their own suffering, however arbitrary their own suffering, however much that's caused by the malevolence of others, as well as the tragedy of existence, that does not in any way justify their turning away from the good. And I believe everyone knows that. I believe that they know it implicitly, even if they don't allow themselves to know it explicitly. And I believe that if they violate that idea, then they violate themselves, and that they end up in Cain's position, which is the position of the man who's been given a punishment that is too great to bear. Now we're capable of making sacrifices in abstraction, right? To conceptualize a future that we want, to let go of the things that are stopping us from moving forward, and to free ourselves from the chains of our original preconceptions. Pursue pleasure. Follow your impulses. Live for the moment. Do what's expedient. A mountain is something you have to climb, and you have to climb to the pinnacle of a mountain, and the mountain is up, right? And the mountain stretches up to heaven, and it's a long journey to specify the right place on the highest pinnacle. And that's symbolic because, of course, it's a pinnacle that you're always trying to reach, just like you're always trying to aim. You're always trying to climb upward. At least that's the theory. It depends to some degree, of course, on your definition of upward. You're supposed to, again, to act out the highest good of which you're capable. Now that'll transform your life to some degree into an archetypal adventure. There's no way around that, because as you attempt to climb a higher mountain, let's say, or to aim at a higher target or something like that, then the things around you will become increasingly dramatic and of import. That happens by necessity, obviously, because if you're aiming at something difficult and profound and you're really working at it, then your life is going to become perhaps increasingly difficult and profound. But that might be okay. That might be exactly what you need as an antidote to the implicit limitations that face you as a human being. The good father is precisely someone who is willing to sacrifice his child to the ultimate good. You have a moral obligation as a parent to encourage your child to go out into the world, right? And to be whoever they can be, to be the best they can possibly be. And in doing that, you're encouraging them to pursue the good. You're sacrificing them to the good. You're not keeping them for yourself selfishly. You're telling them that they can go out and live their life and live it properly. You don't want for your son what it is that you want for him. You want for your son what would be best for him and for the world. And you let go in precise proportion to your desire to have that happen. When you have an infant, you do everything for the infant because the infant can do nothing for him or herself. But as the infant matures and is increasingly capable of doing things for him or herself, then you pull back, right? You pull back, and every time the child develops the ability to do something, you allow them or encourage them to do it, and you don't interfere. So if your child is struggling getting dressed, well, obviously there's some times that you help them, but mostly you let them learn so that they can know how to do it in the future. That's better for you, and it's certainly better for them. There's a rule if you're working with the elderly in an old age home, and the rule is something like, don't do anything for any of the guests, let's say, that they can do for themselves, because you compromise their independence. And so as a mother, you pull back and you let your child hit him or herself against the world, and you fail to protect them. But by failing to protect them, you encourage and ennoble them to the point where you're no longer necessary. Now, they may still want to see you, and it would be wonderful if that was the case, but the point is that you're supposed to remove yourself from the equation by encouraging your child to be the best possible person that person can be. And you sacrifice your desires all of your desires to that, your personal desires, even your desires for your child in relationship to you. Because you want them to move forward into the world as a light, right? As a light on a hill. That's what you want, if you have any sense. And so you don't get to keep your children at home because you need them.